This is a guided walkthrough for day number 22 from TryHackMe's Advent of Cyber event, Advent of Cyber 2024 event. The topic for today is Kubernetes DFIR, as in digital forensics, and the name of the activity is It's Because I'm Cubed, Isn't It? Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about what is going on in the story, and then we'll start the task. Mayor Malware laughed hard at what he had done. Another scheme hatched, another scheme won. But a thought passed the mayor, the thought then passed twice. The list soon to come, the town's naughty or nice. He paced and he paced like a week of election, until that was it, a surprise mayor inspection. The list-making wares, well, it only seemed fair, would grant him temp access and account for the mayor. The list makers agreed under certain conditions. He logged on that day to confirm his suspicions. The next day they were, when the naughty list read, Mayor Malware, line 1, he read it with dread. The conditions they gave, there's something they missed, as somehow in some way he accessed the list. Mayor Malware then smiled as he'd find no blame. With this he would find a new home for his name. Okay, so what are we doing in today's learning objectives? We're going to learn about Kubernetes, what it is and why they're used. We're going to learn about DFIR and the challenges that come with DFIR in an ephemeral environment. And we're going to learn about how DFIR can be done in a Kubernetes environment using log analysis. So connecting to the machine, what do we need to do in today's task? Do we need to start up a VM today? Yes. Is there split screen available? Yes. So what we need to do to start today's activity is to click on the green Start Machine button over here. So once we do that, the machine is going to start up, but it's going to take a couple of minutes before the machine finishes initializing. So while the machine is initializing, we're going to go through a little bit of what we're going to be doing in today's task. So Kubernetes explained. Back in the day, it was very common for companies and organizations to use a monolithic architecture when building their applications. A monolithic architecture is an application built as a single unit, a single code base, and usually a single executable deployed as a single component. For many companies, this worked and still does to this day. However, for some companies, this style of architecture was causing problems, especially when it came to scaling. The problem with monolithic applications is that if one part of the application needs scaling, the whole application needs to be scaled with it. It would make far more sense for companies with applications that receive fluctuating levels of demand across their parts to break their application down, component by component, and run them as their own microservices. That way, if one microservice starts to receive an increase in demand, it can be scaled up rather than the entire application. The Great Microservice Adoption. Microservice architecture was adopted by companies like Netflix, which is a perfect example of the hypothetical company discussed above. Their need to scale up services dedicated to streaming when a new title was released, whilst services dedicated to user registration, billing, etc. won't need the same scaling level, made a microservice architecture a no-brainer. As time went by, companies similar to Netflix hopped aboard the microservices express, and it became very widely adopted. Now, as the hosting of these microservices, containers were chosen due to their lightweight nature. Only, as you may imagine, an application of this scale can require hundreds, even thousands of containers. Suddenly, a tool was needed to organize and manage these containers. Introducing Kubernetes. Well, you guessed it, that's exactly what Kubernetes was made for. Kubernetes is a container orchestration system. Imagine one of those microservices mentioned earlier is running in a container, and then suddenly there's an increase in traffic, and this one container can no longer handle all requests. The solution to this problem is to have another container spun up for this microservice and balance the traffic between the two. Kubernetes takes care of this solution for you, orchestrating those containers when needed. That makes things a lot easier for everybody involved, and it's because of this, along with the widespread adoption of microservice architecture, that Kubernetes is so ubiquitous in the digital landscape today. This popularity means that it's highly portable, as no matter what technology stack is being used, it's very likely a Kubernetes integration is available. This, along with the fact that it can help an application highly available and scalable, makes Kubernetes a no-brainer. In Kubernetes, containers run in pods. These pods run on nodes, and a collection of nodes make up a Kubernetes cluster. It is within a cluster that McSkitty and Co.'s investigation will occur today. If you're interested in learning more about Kubernetes, we have a range of rooms on the subject. A good place to start would be the Intro to Kubernetes room. Then, and there's plenty more where that came from with the Kubernetes hardening module. So DFIR basics. So DFIR stands for digital forensics. Every cybersecurity professional has stumbled or will stumble upon DFIR at some point in their career. It's an acronym. In IT, we love our acronyms. That stands for Digital Forensics and Incident Response. These two investigative branches of cybersecurity come into play during a cybersecurity incident. A DFIR expert will likely be called to action as soon as an incident is ascertained and will be expected to perform actions that fall into one or both of the two disciplines. Digital forensics. Like any other forensics discipline, it aims to collect and analyze digital evidence of an incident. The artifacts collected from the affected systems are used to trace the chain of attack and uncover all facts that ultimately led to the incident. DFIR experts sometimes use the term post-mortem to indicate that their analysis starts after the incident has occurred and is performed in an already compromised system and networks. Incident response. While still relying on data analysis to investigate the incident, focus on responsive actions such as threat containment and system recovery. The incident responder will isolate infected machines, use the data collected during the analysis to identify the hole in the infrastructure's security and to close it, and then recover the affected systems to a clean, previous to compromised state. Picture the incident responder as an emergency first responder whose aim is to contain the damage, extinguish the fire, and find and stabilize all the victims. On the other hand, the digital forensics analyst is a crime scene investigator, CSI, or detective trying to recreate the crime scene and ultimately find evidence to identify and frame the criminal. Both roles are expected to document all findings thoroughly. The incident responder will present them to explain how the incident happened and what can be learned from it, ultimately proposing changes to improve the security stance of the entity affected by the incident. The digital forensics analyst will use the findings to demonstrate the attacker's actions and eventually testify against them in court. In the task at hand, we will help McSkitty and the Glitch become digital forensics analysts and retrace the malicious actor's steps. We will especially focus on collecting evidence and artifacts to uncover the perpetrator and present our analysis to Wareville townspeople. Excruciatingly ephemeral. DFIR can be a lot of fun. It's easy to feel like a digital detective, analyzing the crime scene and connecting the dots to create a narrative string of events explaining what happened. What if the crime scene vanished into thin air moments after the crime was committed? That is the problem we face regularly when carrying out DFIR in a Kubernetes environment. That is because, as mentioned, Kubernetes workloads run in containers. It is very common that a container will have a very short lifespan, either spun up to run a job quickly or to handle increased load, etc., before being spun back down again. In fact, in this year's 2024 Cloud Native Security and Usage report, SysDig found that 70% of containers live for less than 5 minutes. So what can be done about it? Well, not to worry. It just means we have to expand our digital detectives toolkit. The key to keeping track of ongoings in your often ephemeral workloads within your Kubernetes environment is increasing visibility. There's a few ways we can do this. One way is enabling Kubernetes audit logging, a function that Kubernetes provides, allowing for requests to the API to be captured at various stages. For example, if a major makes a request to delete a pod, this request can be captured, and while the pod will be deleted and the logs contained within it lost, the request made to delete it will persist in the audit logs. What request events are captured can be defined within an audit policy. We can use these audit logs to answer questions which help us in a security deeper context, such as what happened, when did it happen, who initiated it, to what did it happen, where was it observed, or from where was it initiated, and to where was it going. Of course, this just scratches the surface in terms of the level of visibility we can achieve in our Kubernetes environment. We can feed these audit logs as well as events from other security relevant sources into runtime security tools, which help transform these raw events into actionable data, which can then be visualized using yet more tools. A digital detective should definitely invest in an extra large toolkit. If you want to learn more about the subject, check out the Kubernetes Runtime Security Room. Following the cookie crumbs. Let's start our investigation. As mentioned before, some of the logs would disappear as their sources, like pods, are ephemeral. Let's see this in action. First, open the VM and open a terminal as start K8s using the following command. Okay, so we've got a command that we need to run. So first of all, we need to open up a terminal. So in the VM over here, we're going to open up the terminal using this shortcut, double click. And then from here, we can type in the command. So it's minikube start. So minikube start, and then enter. So it says it will take roughly 3 minutes for the cluster to configure itself and start. You can verify that the cluster is up and running using the following command. So I did a little bit of testing earlier today, and it indeed takes a little bit of time to start up. So we just need to sit around and wait for this to start. So let's see. You can verify that the cluster is up and running using the following command. kubectl get pods n whereville. Great. So I think we can copy this. I'm just going to try copying this and moving it over. It looks like we need to use the control panel. So we can use this control panel in the middle here, and then open up the clipboard. In the clipboard, we can paste in our command, and then use this button here to close the control bar. After that, we're going to paste in the command and then hit enter. Okay, so we've got a bunch of different Kubernetes pods. I think these are different containers. So this is morality checker, naughty or nice. There's a few different ones. They all show error for some reason. That's unfortunate. So if all the pods are up and running based on their status, you are ready to go. This will take another 2 minutes. Oh, okay, so I guess we need to wait. Since we know that the web application was compromised, let's connect to that pod and see if we can recover any logs. Connect to the pod using the following command. Okay, so we're going to try to connect to one of these pods. It's going to be the naughty or nice pod, and we're going to start up a bin bash terminal. So we're going to copy the command here, and then in this control panel, we're going to paste in the command. And then in the terminal, we're going to paste in the command. Okay, so we're in. So we're inside this naughty or nice pod, which is just another Linux environment. And we see here that we've got a bunch of files in this file system. Great. Once connected, let's review the Apache 2 access log. Okay. So we just need to read this one over here. So it's cat var log apache2 access.log. So we can just type that out. So cat/var/log/apache2/access.log. Need to fix my spelling. That was not fixing my spelling. Okay. All right. So we're now accessing the Apache 2 log. So sadly, we only see logs from the 28th of October when our attack occurred later on. However, looking at the last log, we see something interesting with the request being made to a shelly.php file. Okay, so over here, we've got our GET request to the shelly.php file. And an interesting thing about the about this particular endpoint is that there's a URL parameter called command, and the value of that URL parameter for command is who am I. This really points to the possibility that this is some sort of web shell, and because the command is equal to a Linux command over here. Okay. So this tells us that we are on the right track. Terminate your session to the pod using the exit command. Fortunately, McSkitty knew that the log source was ephemeral and decided to ensure that the remote backups of the log source were made. Navigate to our backup directory using cd DFIR artifacts over here, where you will find the access log stored in pod apache2 access.log. Okay, so let's do this. So over here in the terminal, we're going to use the exit command, and then we're going to use the command cd/home/ubuntu/DFIR artifacts. Okay, so we're going to enter that directory, and inside that directory, we're going to see the file that we're looking for, which is pod apache2 access.log. Review these logs to see what Mayor malware was up to on the website to answer the first 3 questions at the bottom of the task. Okay. So sadly, our investigation hits a bit of a brick wall here. Firstly, because the pod was configured using a port forward, we don't see the actual IP that was used to connect to the instance. Also, we still don't fully understand how the web shell found its way into the pod. However, we rebooted the cluster and the web shell was present, meaning it must live within the actual image of the pod itself. That means we need to investigate the Docker image registry itself. To review the registry container ID, run the following command. Okay, so let's use docker ps to figure out what the ID is of this container. So we're going to do docker ps. Okay, so we see that there are, this is the ID of our container over here, and unfortunately we can't see it very well because the, okay, so this is the ID of the container that we need to take a look at today. I'm just going to copy this because we're going to be using this a little bit later. Now let's connect to the instance to see if we have any logs. So we're going to do docker exec and then the container name and then ls al var/log. Okay, so let's run this command. So it's going to be docker exec and then the container name, which we're going to paste in, which is this, and then ls space -al /var/log. Okay, and then hit enter. So this is an empty directory. Great. So again, we hit a wall since we don't have any registry logs. Luckily, Docker itself would keep logs for us. Let's pull up these logs using the following. Okay, so it's going to be docker logs container name. Let's do that. So docker logs, and then paste in the container name over here, and then hit enter. Okay, so we've got all the logs over here. Now we have something we can use. These logs have been pulled for you and are stored in this directory over here. Okay, so we just pulled up all of the logs for this particular Docker instance. So now we have something we can use. These logs that have been pulled for you and are stored in this directory over here. So let's start by seeing all the different connections we made to the registry by searching for the head HTTP request code and restricting it down to only the first item, which is the IP. So they've got this handy dandy little command over here. We can just copy it. And then, as usual, if we want to actually paste something into the attack box here, we need to paste it into the clipboard first. After that, close the clipboard and then paste into the terminal, hit enter. Okay, so we've got a bunch of different IP addresses over here. So we've got 3 different ones. So we've got 172, this one that starts with 172, this one that starts with 10, and we've got another one that starts with 172. I think it's the same one as the one above. Here we can see that most of the connections to our registry were made from the expected IP of 172.17. So this is what we expect for these logs. So the anomalous IP is this one over here. So this is an IP that is not known to us. Let's find all the requests made by this IP with this other command over here. So we're just going to look at the registry logs and we're going to grep for this particular IP address. So we're just going to copy it and then put it in our clipboard and then give this command. Okay, so we see a bunch of the commands, a bunch of the requests made by the IP over here. All right. So now we're getting somewhere. If we review the first few requests, we can see that several authentication attempts were made, but we can also see that the request to read the manifest from the wishlist web image succeeded, as the HTTP status code of 200 is returned for this log entry here. So the IP address made a GET request to this endpoint over here, wishlist web manifest latest, and received a 200 code, which means it was successful. What we also notice is the user agent in the request is Docker, meaning that this was a request made through the Docker CLI to pull up the image. This is confirmed when we see several requests that then to download the image. From this we learn several things. The Docker CLI application was used to connect to the registry. Connections came from this IP address right here, which is unexpected since we only upload images from this IP address over here. The client was authenticated, which allowed the image to be pulled. This means that whoever made the request had access to credentials. If they had access to credentials to pull an image, the same credentials might have allowed them to also push a new image. We can verify this by narrowing our search to any patch HTTP methods. The patch method is used to update Docker images in the registry. So here we're going to see if there was any patch events in the logs made by this IP address right here. So we're just going to copy this to the clipboard and then run the command. Okay, so there are two events in the log where there was a patch command that went through successfully from the anomalous IP address. Where is that? Yeah, so the IP address is right here. Okay. So this is no good. It means that malware could push a new version of our image. This would explain how the web shell made its way into the image, since malware pulled the image, made malicious updates, then pushed this compromised image back to the registry. Use the information to answer questions 4 through 6 at the bottom of the task. Now that we know malware had access to the credentials of the Docker registry, we need to learn how he could have gained access to them. We use these credentials in our Kubernetes cluster to read the image from the registry. So let's see what could have happened to disclose them. Okay, so it looks like the attack happened via an authenticated Docker registry push. Now it's time to return to our Kubernetes environment and determine how this was possible. McSkitty was made aware that Mare malware was given user access to the naughty or nice Kubernetes environment, but was assured by the DevSecOps team that he wouldn't have sufficient permissions to view secrets. The first thing we should do is make sure that this is the case. To do this, McSkitty decides to check what role was assigned to the mayor. First, she checks the role bindings, which is binding a role to a user. Okay, so this is, let's just type this in. So it's going to be kubectl get role bindings -n whereville, hit enter. Okay, so we've got job runner binding and we've got mayor user binding. And so the role is job runner and the second role is mayor user. Okay, great. So McSkitty then sees a role binding named after Mayor malware and decides to take a closer look. Okay, so the next command is kubectl describe role binding mayor user binding -n whereville. Okay, so the name is mayor user binding, label is none, annotation's none. The role is a role, and the name is mayor user. The subject is mayor malware. Okay, well, I don't see very much. From the output, you should see that there's a role mayor user that is bound to the user mayor malware. McSkitty then checked this role to see what permissions it has, and therefore what permissions mayor malware had. Okay, so we're going to further take a look at the role of mayor user. So that's going to be kubectl describe role mayor user -n whereville. All right, so what can this person do? So they can, so names, verbs, they can pod exec, they can get a list, they can authorization to this particular role, get list describe, and then they can get list and watch. So the output here tells McSkitty something very important. A lot of the permissions listed here are as you would expect for a non-admin user in a Kubernetes environment. All of those except for the permissions associated with pods/exec. Exec allows the user to shell into the containers running within a pod. This gives McSkitty an idea of what Mayor malware might have done. To confirm her suspicions, she checks and audits the logs for Mayor malware's activity. So, ooh, this is a really big command. Okay, so let's copy this all. So what are we doing? So we're looking at the audit log, and we're looking for the username Mayor malware, and I guess we're going to be color coding this and look for the verb over here. Okay, so let's copy this command over to the clipboard here, and then let's run that command. Okay, so verb create user, username Mayor malware, resource pods, all this stuff. This returns a lot of logs. Let's go through them as McSkitty starts to form the attack path taken by Mayor malware. Okay. This log snippet tells us that Mayor malware attempted to get the secret stored on the cluster, but received a 403 response as he didn't have sufficient permissions to do so. So note a plural get command runs a list on the backend, and this is why it appears so in the logs. Next, we're going to take a look at the resources over here. Okay, so as usual, we're going to paste in the command. So after being denied secret access, then started snooping to see what roles were present on the server. Okay, so looking at the roles over here. So whilst running the previous get roles command, malware will have found a role called job runner. These logs tell us that malware then described this role, which would have been given him key pieces of information regarding the role. Most importantly for our investigation, it would have told him that the role has secret read access. Okay. Now, knowing that this role can view secrets, malware tried to find its role binding to see what was using this role. Okay, so we're going to use the next command to describe the role binding. And then paste it into the clipboard. So after seeing a role binding named job runner binding, malware described it and found that this role is bound to a service named job runner SA. Also known as this service account has permission to view secrets. Okay, and in the next step, we're going to get the pods. Here we can see that malware, now armed with the knowledge that a service account has the permissions he needs, lists all the pods running in the Wareville namespaces with the kubectl get pods command. Okay. The next step is going to describe the pod. Malware describes the pod as a morality checker. He then would have found out that this pod runs with the job runner SA service account attached, meaning that if he were able to gain access to this pod, he would be able to gain secret read access. So the next one is going to be executing. So as mentioned in the role discussion, exec is a permission usually not included in a non-admin role. It is for this exact reason that this is the case. McSkitty feels confident that the DevSecOps team had overly permissive role-based access control, RBAC, in place in the Kubernetes environment, and it was this that allowed malware to run an exec command as captured by the logs above, and gain shell access into the morality checker. To confirm her suspicions further, McSkitty runs the following command to retrieve audit logs captured from the job runner SA service account. Okay, so we're looking for the user service account job runner SA. Okay. So here we can see a few commands being run. We can see Mare malware is able to now run get commands on secrets to list them. But most importantly, we can see that he has indeed been able to escalate his privileges and gain access to the pull creds secret using the job runner SA service account. Here is where we... Oh, this is really long. Okay, and what is happening here? So we're looking for username jobrunner SA, and then we're looking for... Let me go back here. The final piece to the puzzle revolved around this secret. Finally, she runs the command, and the attack path is concerned. Okay, so we're going to use this command over here to decode a secret from the Kubernetes pod over here. Let's do that. So Kubernetes get secret, pull creds on the Wareville pods, and then decode it from base 64. Okay, so over here, this is the secret we're looking for. Okay, need to... ban a user, just a second. Okay, so this is the secret. This is the secret that Mare malware accessed. So what we need to do is we're going to be using this as the answer to one of our questions, but let's get to that in just a second. Shaking her head, McCity then confirms the Docker registry pull password is the same as the push password. This means that after retrieving these credentials, Mare malware would have been able to make Docker registry push that we saw earlier and ensure that its malicious web shell was deployed into the Kubernetes environment and gain persistence. It is for this reason that push and pull credentials should be different. With that, the investigation is all tied up, the conclusion being that Mare malware most certainly belongs on the naughty list this year. Okay. ISDev says N is the namespace. Right, namespace, of course. I don't I don't work with Kubernetes too often, but I was guessing that was the name of some sort of group. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, so before we answer the other questions over here, I'm just going to grab this secret because this secret is the answer for one of our questions. So just highlight all this, then copy it. Then over in the clipboard, copy this, and this is going to be used for the last question. The last question is, what is the value in the pull creds secret here? We're going to paste in the answer here, and then click on submit. And looks like, what is the value stored in the pull cred secret? Did I copy this incorrectly? Let me... Okay, so it has to be in this format. So it's everything between... It's everything between these... Okay, let me take a look at my notes. So it's going to be everything from... Oh, it's everything. Okay, so it has to be everything from here until the very end. Okay. All right, so just copy this then. It looks like they want everything. And then copy this. And then provide this as the answer. Okay, great. Okay, we're going to go back and answer the other questions to finish today's task. So answer the questions below. What is the name of the web shell that is used by malware? So let's take a look at what command we need to do that. So we just need to take a look at the access log. So in the console here, we're just going to clear this, and then we're going to look at the access log. But before we look at the access log, we have to. Is the access log here? No. Okay. So we need to exec into the Kubernetes cluster first. So we're going to do that with this command over here. So we're just going to run this command so we can access that log. So after we do that, we're going to be inside the container, and then we're going to access the log. So it's going to be cat var log apache2 access.log, and we can see I keep on misspelling the word Apache. Okay. So the web shell's name is shelly.php. So that's the answer for that question. So let's go over and answer the question. The answer is shelly.php. Okay, so the next question is, what file did malware read from the pod? So we're taking a look at the pod Apache one more time. And so it's this command right here, cat pod apache2 access log. And we see that the file that they accessed was this right here. So the command is going to be cat plus db.php. So that's the name of the file. So it's db.php, then hit submit. Okay, that's the correct answer. And the next question is, what tool did malware search for that could be used to create a remote connection from the pod? So this answer is only 2 letters long. So we can actually take a look in. So we're using the same command over here, and we're looking for some sort of 2-letter command. So the command is going to be, so who am I? Which something. In this case, it's going to be which NC, which stands for netcat, and that's a tool that can be used to create a remote connection from the pod. So the answer here is NC for netcat. The next question is, what IP connected to the Docker registry that was unexpected? So the answer is, we can take a look at the Docker registry logs, and this was the command used to do that. Let me copy it over. So let's clear this. Okay, so we're taking a look at the Docker registry logs with cat, and then we're looking for the very first field with the cut command here, and we see that. So we know that from the previous description that this is the expected IP address, and this is the unusual IP address. So this one is the answer right here. So the answer is 10.10.130.253. Okay, the next question is, at what time is the first connection made by this IP to the Docker registry? So we're taking a look at the log one more time. So we're actually going to be doing the same thing as the previous command, except we're going to be looking at it in more detail. We're going to grep for the IP address, which is 10.10.130.253, and we're going to pipe that into the head command, which is only going to show us the first couple of lines from the output. So when we look at the logs, we're gonna see that the first time that this IP address connects is this time right here. So this is the time that we want. So we're just going to copy this and then put this in our clipboard and then paste this in. Click on submit. Okay, that's a correct answer. And the last question we need to answer before we can finish today's task is, at what time is the updated malicious image pushed to the registry? So we know from the previous tasks that we're looking for the for patch inside of the logs. So it's going to be this command right here. Let me copy it. So we're looking at the registry logs, and we're looking for the anomalous IP address, and we're looking for the patch command. So let's scroll down, clear this, paste in, and we're looking for the last timestamp over here. So this is the timestamp over here. And we're going to supply this as the answer. Oh, okay. So, well, it's going to be either one of these two. So let's try copying this one instead. Okay, so that one's done. Great. All right, so the last thing we need to do to complete today's exercise is to just click on here. It says, enjoyed today's lesson. Check out our Intro to Kubernetes for a more in-depth introduction to Kubernetes. All right, so we could certainly do that in the future if we wanted to know more. Just click on the complete button over here, and then you're going to see the whole task turn green, and that's how you know you've actually completed the task. All right, so that was a guided walkthrough for day number 22 from TryHackMe's Advent of Cyber 2024 event. And if you enjoyed this walkthrough, please click on the like and subscribe buttons on the video. But until next time, HackerFrogs out.
Hey there, HackerFrogs! Are you enjoying this workshop? Learning new concepts and skills? If so, there's a way you can support the channel, and it's totally free. Just click on the subscribe button below the video. Also, click on the like button. And if you have questions or comments on this workshop, please leave them below the video. Thanks for listening. And now, back to our scheduled programming.